go again. Sussex lies exposed.
It didn't start in a grand hall or a palace drawing room. It started at a security lane in one of the world's busiest airports. A routine luggage sweep, a black pouch, and inside it, documents that would shake the royal family to its core. Nobody anticipated that a carry-on bag belonging to Meghan Markle would be pulled from the belt that day. But when it was, what officers uncovered wasn't clothing or toiletries. It was a sealed legal package bearing one of the most recognizable symbols in Britain, the royal crest, stamped in deep red, marked confidential. The papers inside concerned a sprawling royal estate in the Scottish Highlands, an ancient castle, hunting forests, historic outbuildings, land the late Queen had personally placed under Princess Catherine's stewardship, a gesture of profound trust. But according to these documents, Catherine had agreed to hand a share of that estate over to Meghan. Within the hour, Prince William had a copy, and from that moment, the storm broke. Catherine, who had been quietly recovering from illness and stepping back from public duties, was unequivocal. She had never seen that contract. She had never signed it. So the question gripping everyone behind closed palace doors wasn't about property anymore. Who created that document, and why was Meghan flying to Scotland right now? It was a gray February afternoon at Heathrow in 2026. Terminal 5 hummed with the usual noise, rolling bags, overhead announcements, the murmur of thousands of travelers moving through their day. For most of them, it was completely unremarkable. For airport security, it was anything but. It had begun in the checked baggage hall. A shipment logged as personal business papers cleared the first X-ray pass. Then a second, more sensitive scanner flagged it. Unusual density, irregular shapes. An alarm cut through the air. Conveyor belts stopped. Officers pulled the bag, and a decision was made almost immediately. Expand the sweep across the entire terminal zone. Teams in dark green uniforms spread out, calling passengers aside, unzipping cases, working methodically through clothing and documents and personal items. The mood shifted from impatient to uneasy. When an officer waved Meghan Markle over, she was standing a short distance away, phone in hand, composure carefully managed. She smiled as she approached. "Just personal documents," she said. "Nothing worth stopping for." The officer said nothing and pointed to the bag. The zipper opened. Beneath a layer of fabric in the case's inner lining, gloved hands located a thick black document pouch, the kind used to transport sensitive legal materials. What they found inside stopped the inspection team cold. A stack of papers approximately 3 centimeters thick, bound with a red elastic. The cover page bore an unmistakable emblem, the royal crest, lion and unicorn, with the words "confidential, property of the crown," pressed into the surface in deep red ink. Silence. Then the sound of pages turning and shallow, careful breathing. The documents detailed the Royal Highland estate in full, its ownership history, its boundaries, its legal status, and a transfer agreement giving Meghan Markle a share. The shift supervisor looked at his colleague, then at Meghan. "These are classified royal documents. We're detaining them and filing a full report." Meghan kept her voice even. "There's been a misunderstanding. These are personal copies for a legal review." Nobody moved to release her. Airport police arrived within minutes. Each page was photographed, serial numbers logged, everything sealed in an evidence bag marked urgent. A call went out to a secure palace line. "Royal documents found at Heathrow, Scottish estate, passenger, Meghan Markle." The response was immediate. "Secure the scene, full documentation, wait for instruction." 40 minutes later, encrypted images were arriving at Kensington Palace. Meghan was taken to a private holding room, leather chairs, a coffee machine, and a blocked signal. She sat gripping her phone, trying to reach her legal team, feeling the walls of a very carefully constructed plan beginning to close in. Her flight to Scotland left without her. At Kensington Palace, William was alone in his study when the secure transmission arrived. Warm lamplight, an antique desk, and then page after page of photocopied documents that made his jaw tighten and his hands go still. He knew this estate. He had been in the room when his grandmother spoke about it, quietly, deliberately, explaining why she was placing it in Catherine's care. It was heritage, it was responsibility, it was meant for their children's future. And here was a contract saying Catherine had given part of it away to Meghan. "This isn't possible," William said quietly, pressing the page flat. He walked quickly to Catherine's room. She was resting. Recovery from cancer treatment had made these quieter evenings necessary. Since 2024, she had been through surgery and chemotherapy. By early 2025, she had announced remission, but her public schedule remained limited. She had been focused on healing, on her children, on steadying herself before fully returning. William sat beside her and placed the documents gently in her hands. She read. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "I didn't sign this. I've never seen it." She turned to the final page. "This is my signature, but I didn't write it. Someone replicated it." Her voice didn't shake. It sharpened. "I want to investigate this personally. I will not let this stand, not while the public trust we've spent years building is at stake." William put his hand over hers. "We'll find out everything. I'll be beside you through it all." That night, calls went out. Legal teams were summoned. The palace shifted into a different mode entirely. Quiet on the outside, urgent underneath. To understand how this began, you have to go back to late 2025, to a sun-filled villa in Montecito, California, where the view was beautiful and the financial picture was not. Meghan sat at her desk surrounded by red figures. Her lifestyle brand, launched with grand fanfare, had collapsed, losses estimated at $12 million. The major streaming deal that had once seemed a signal a new chapter wasn't renewed. Her charitable foundation was running consistent deficits, costs exceeding contributions, forcing restructuring and staff reductions. She had believed that stepping away from royal life would mean freedom, financial independence, a platform she controlled entirely. What she found instead was that the costs of that life were immense and the revenues were shrinking. Security, staff, infrastructure, projects that didn't connect with audiences the way she had hoped. She stared at her screen. The coffee beside her had gone cold. And then, the idea. The Scottish estate, land of enormous value, historically protected, entrusted to a woman who had spent the last year prioritizing her health over administrative visibility. A temporary gap in oversight, a window. Meghan made a call on an encrypted line to a private attorney in Los Angeles, a specialist in sensitive cases. "I need a transfer agreement, airtight, nothing traceable." The lawyer made introductions, a document specialist, someone with a precise skill for replicating signatures from existing materials. They worked quietly, scanned earlier documents bearing Catherine's signature, studied the pressure, the angle, the particular personality of her handwriting, produced one on high-quality paper with replica seals that passed a casual inspection. Meghan reviewed every stage. She felt the particular electricity of a plan clicking into place. Partial ownership transferred to a personal fund, revenue to rescue the projects she still believed in, a lifeline dressed as a legal transaction. "This is my way back," she told herself. The document was finished, tucked into a black pouch, packed beneath the lining of a carry-on case. The plan was simple: fly through Heathrow, less direct, less suspicious, then complete the local registration in Scotland before anyone was looking. She closed the case. She felt calm. She didn't know that a small, unrelated smuggling attempt in the checked baggage hall had already triggered an expanded sweep of Terminal 5. She didn't know that the density of a 3-centimeter legal document stack inside a suitcase lining reads differently on a scanner than a thin folder of personal papers. She didn't know that minutes after she arrived at the inspection table, the carefully sealed black pouch would be in the hands of a customs officer who had seen enough unusual documents to know exactly what the red royal crest meant. When the gloves touched that pouch, Meghan felt the temperature of the room change. Everything she had constructed, every careful step, every encrypted call, every replicated pen stroke came apart in the time it took a zipper to open. The morning after the incident, Catherine moved quickly. She ordered the Royal Legal Department to cross-reference the original estate records held at Windsor Castle's secure archive. A specialist team assembled under strict protocol: forensic document examiners, digital investigators, senior royal lawyers, dual authentication, surveillance throughout, a sealed room. The signature expert was first to report. This was digitally reconstructed, he said, pointing to a magnified comparison on screen. It was not handwritten. It was produced from scanned source materials and printed.
The pressure variation isn't there. The baseline drift isn't there. This is a reproduction. Catherine listened without looking away. Something tightened in her expression, not grief, but a particular kind of fury that comes from being used during a period of vulnerability. The digital forensics team traced the access logs for the Royal Estate Archive system. They found an unauthorized login. The origin? California, Montecito. The timestamp placed it during the weeks Catherine had been least publicly visible, a period almost entirely defined by her recovery. Emergency contact with Scottish legal authorities followed. A freeze order was placed on the Highlands estate. No transactions, no transfers, no confirmations, all records locked. Local agencies put on alert. William stood behind his wife as she coordinated the response, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Meanwhile, inside the holding room at Terminal 5, Meghan had already begun trying to contain the damage. 2 hours of blocked signal, 2 hours of understanding how badly things had gone. She opened an encrypted messaging app and typed fast. Stop everything. Wipe the drafts, delete the contract files, the correspondence, the editing work, all of it. Now. Her lawyer on the other side of the ocean moved immediately. Folders deleted, email chains wiped, the chat itself removed. Meghan exhaled. She had pulled one thread back. What she didn't know, couldn't know, was that weeks earlier she had sent a copy of the forged document to the Scottish Land Registry to schedule a confirmation appointment. That copy had been automatically archived in their secure system. It hadn't gone anywhere. And while Meghan sat in that room methodically erasing what she could, investigators were already working through the night on what she couldn't. Digital forensics recovered traces from her phone, fragments of emails to the attorney, and a financial trail, a $50,000 transfer through an offshore account to the forgery specialist. She heard the shift in footsteps outside the door before the officers entered. They were polite, firm. They needed her phone and tablet. She handed them over, hands unsteady. She had controlled the situation for months. She had controlled nothing for the past several hours. 4 days after Heathrow, the full report landed on the conference table at Kensington Palace. Catherine sat at the head of it, William beside her. The lead investigator delivered the findings, without hesitation. Forged signature, confirmed. Unauthorized digital access for Montecito, confirmed. Payment to a third-party specialist, confirmed. The copied document in the Scottish Land Registry system, confirmed. This was a deliberate and coordinated attempt to fraudulently transfer ownership of a protected royal estate, he said. No part of this contract is legitimate. No part of Princess Catherine's signature is genuine. Catherine absorbed it quietly. The relief she felt wasn't clean. It was complicated by the reality of what someone had attempted while she was ill. Not just fraud, exploitation of a period she had spent trying to survive. "We proceed with legal action," she said, "and we brief His Majesty today." That afternoon, King Charles III heard the full account at Clarence House. He listened in silence. When it was over, he set his hand on the table and exhaled slowly. "I never thought we would arrive here," he said, "but there are no exceptions, not for family, not for anyone." Charges were filed against Meghan Markle: forgery of royal documents, conspiracy to commit fraud, financial crimes. Her lawyer called her in the hotel room where she'd been ordered to remain, passport surrendered. "They have everything," he said. "We can negotiate, but the Sussex titles will be suspended immediately pending trial." Meghan was quiet for a long time. Then, "I made a terrible mistake." The tears that came weren't fear of the legal process. They were the specific grief of someone who had crossed a line they could not uncross and had lost, in doing so, far more than they stood to gain. The palace statement went out within 48 hours. Due to serious allegations involving the fraudulent use of royal documents, the titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex are temporarily suspended pending the outcome of legal proceedings. The royal family will cooperate fully with all relevant authorities. It spread across every major outlet within hours. Social media fractured along familiar lines: defense, condemnation, disbelief, analysis. Catherine chose not to stay silent. The following day, she released a detailed public account of how the Royal Highland estate was managed, its origins, its legal protections, the approval process required for any change in stewardship. Clear, transparent, thorough. And then she appeared on camera. No drama, no performance. "We have been through difficult times," she said, voice steady, "but integrity and truth are the only foundation worth building on. Thank you for standing with us." William stood beside her. "Our family have served for centuries through every kind of storm. That will not change." The response was immediate and warm. Public trust in the institution, and in Catherine and William specifically, climbed sharply. Her handling of the crisis, especially given everything she had faced health-wise, became a story of its own. Later, Catherine stood on the Kensington balcony as snow settled across the garden below, William's arm around her, the noise of the crisis finally quiet. "We kept it safe," she said softly. He pressed his lips to her forehead. "We always will." The story doesn't end with triumph. It ends with a reckoning. Personal ambition pursued without regard for what it costs others or for what's right has a way of destroying the very things it was meant to protect. The documents in that black pouch weren't just evidence of a crime. They were the proof of how far desperation, left unchecked, can carry someone from who they once were. The monarchy endured. Not because institutions are unbreakable, but because the people inside them chose, when it mattered most, to hold the line. If you were in Catherine's position, would you have handled this privately or brought it into the open? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this story gripping, like, share, and subscribe, and click the next video on your screen. You won't want to miss it.